Hello, how are you today? I just got back in from out in the wild. There's like a cyclone bomb happening in and around here soon. It's not going to kick in till later this afternoon, but it's already blustery out there. And I drove probably, I don't know, half an hour, 25 minutes west, and it was like winter wonderland. Snow everywhere. It's crazy. And then went a little, like a patch, and then went a little further than that. No snow, just rain and wind. It was bizarre. A little snow bubble. But anyways, I wanted to come on and tell you a little bit about my magical kitty that came into my life. So if you're not into cats or anything, here's your warning. I'm going to talk about cats, okay? So it all started probably 13 years ago. I had this cat that was my neighbor's cat. There were three boys that lived there, and they were kind of left to run wild. And this cat used to come into my yard for some solace, and he would sneak in because I would leave my window open for my cat at the time. And so this cat would come in, and I named it the chocolate cat, or sorry, the shadow cat, because you would just see this shadow really low to the ground, this black little shadow would just be like out. And then a couple times I saw it, and like the boys had like duct taped its paws or whatever. And I went next door and gave them a talking to. Just, yeah, I know it's funny when cats got the tape on their paws and they're trying to shake it off, but like duct tape and consequences, just talking like, what about, did you think about when you go to take the tape off? He's going to pull all his hair out, all his fur out, and that's not cool. Anyways, I didn't yell at them. I just talked to them, and it was kind of like, come on, guys. But anyways, they moved. The cat was gone. And then 2 weeks after they left, this cat showed up in my backyard. And so this wasn't 13 years ago. That was 20 years ago. No. Okay, I'm not going to do the math right now. Anyways, so this cat was in the backyard, and when he was kind of hanging around, but still, like anytime I'd even walk towards the sliding glass door, he would like be out of the yard, just very skittish. And my cat had gone missing. He was missing for like a month. And so I had this cat food. And so I started just leaving a little bit out for this cat. And I heard his people come out, and they were like calling for him and stuff like that. And then I thought, oh, okay, they got their cat. And then he showed up again. And I was getting the feeling that he wasn't into those people. And so either they moved with him and he ran back here, or they moved, couldn't find him, and then they came back to get him or whatever. But he lived for a year in my backyard, wild. And I made a little shelter for him for over the winter because it was snowy and stuff. And like I said, he was not like sociable at all. Like you would just look at the door and he would be gone. So, but I slowly over time, like giving him the food and stuff like that, built up a trust with him. And I got to where I could tap him on the top of the head a couple times, and then he would be like, okay, and I'd be like, okay, and that'd be that. But then I noticed he had this big bump on his arm, and so I was keeping an eye on that, and then the bump went away, and I was like, okay, good. And then I noticed he had this like green ooze coming out of a hole in his arm, and I'm like, oh, that's not a good sign. So I trapped him. I used the trust to get him in, and then I closed the door, and then he was like pressed up against the door, like, what the heck? I want out of here. And I grabbed him and brought him to the vet, and they had to give him, like, knock him out to deal with treat his wound. And they're like, he hasn't been neutered either, so it's a good time to do it while he's already knocked out. So $375 I spend on this stray cat living in my backyard. Get him all fixed up, bring him home. He's all drugged up, gets up to leave, but then falls over because he's all drugged up. Give him his own separate room, just checking in on him and stuff like that. And the minute he could, I think it was about 5 days in, he busted out. Yeah, back then I had the windows that closed like that and just leave it open like this. So if it was open a little bit, he'd squish his head and push it open and get out, right? So so he took off, and then, I'm like, oh, because he's got stitches. And he showed up the day that he needed to go get his stitches taken out, which was great. And then brought him to the vet. And then when we got home, I just opened up the vehicle and was like, okay, there you go, buddy. Like, good luck in life. And he went on his way. And then about 4 days later, I was like, I wonder how this kitty's doing. Like, I wish he would just poke his head in and just be like, I'm still okay. And as I'm thinking about this, I'm lying in bed. I hear this meow. And I look, and out my window, I see these green eyes, or yellow, I think is, I can't remember what color eyes is. See worse. Anyways, these eyes. And it was him. And I was like, hey. And so I opened up the window, and he jumped in, and he did not leave my side for 6 months after that. Like, wasn't interested in going outside, obsessed with me, always had to be near me, on me, around me. Yeah, he became fully my cat. And he had lots of different names. So when he was living in my backyard, I was able to see him long enough to see that he was actually like dark brown, and then a lighter brown, and like he was, what a wind. Um, and then he was gray and spots and stuff. So I started calling him the chocolate cat because he was kind of chocolatey. And then once he became our cat, my son, who was obsessed with miso soup at the time, was like, well, we should call him Miso. And so he was Miso. And then eventually his name became Miso Long Tongue Licky Lick Meow Meow, for all the reasons why you would name a cat that. And he was the closest thing that I have ever had to like a cat familiar, like a cat. He'd come when you call, he'd sit near you, he'd be like watching, guarding, growling, playful. He went from like scared of little boys to Lucas being able to run in from the hallway, jump on the bed where he was sleeping, and he wouldn't move. Whereas before he would just like any active boy, and he was like out of there, right? So he came along, he came far. We developed a good trust with him and stuff. We had him for 7 years. Best cat ever, still best cat ever. And then he had was that kidney failure, and so anyways, we took him to this vet, and the vet was like, he's got so many toxins in his body that the machine is maxed out, like it can't read it. And he was having these phases where he wasn't eating, and he was like barfing up foam, and it was just not, it's not a pretty thing. And then always wondering if you're just going to come home and he's going to, have gone into a coma or passed away in his sleep or something. So we decided to euthanize him. Oh my god, that was traumatizing. Deciding to euthanize your pet is such a hard thing. It's a hard thing to choose, to take something else's life away from them. Like what if his life path was to just slowly die? And who am I to just step in and be like, nope, you're out now. I mean, now I know that your life path is what it is, right? So, but anyways, 13 years later, it took me probably 8 or 9 years, where I had no cat after him, because of the trauma and just having a dependent to all of a sudden not having a dependent. And well, I still had a kid, but you know what I mean, it's different when you have a cat, right? um Although he would have been one to like take camping and take with me, because he came when you called. I mean, that's all you need when you're taking a cat out. But anyways, then we found Scully. I was doing henna on a farm. It was like a bridal shower, and there were these two little kittens there. And the one was this little ginger kitten, and there was just something about him. And I'm like, I've never been attracted to ginger cats at all. I was a tabby cat girl all the way. And then Miso, he was like a black cat, chocolate black cat, um, and long hair, or mid long hair, beautiful, beautiful cat. Oh my god, he was so good. What I'm gonna do, my game plan is to figure out how to add pictures to the video. So if you see any, then I succeeded in my endeavor. So that's kind of what I'm testing out with this video, just so you know. Okay. And so, anyways, 13 years later, Scully, oh yeah, we got Scully. I got him as a tip. He ended up, um, he was for somebody else, and then it got canceled. And then I was like, if anything falls through with this cat, here's my card kind of thing. And hi. And they were just like, just take him. So I walked out of the event with this kitten, and he was so cute, but he was covered in fleas, and he had worms, and oh my goodness. And I mean, the real reason why I took him too was because he had a bunch of siblings that they said the eagles were taken out of the backyard, because they were just letting these kittens just run around their yard. And once I knew that, and the other kitten had a home, but this one didn't, and he had come in from outside at one point while I was there, and I'm like, okay, I'm taking him, right? So anyways, and then 4 days later, I brought him over to my son, because my son was doing week on, week off at his dad's and at my place. And the theory was, because his dad has a cat, and because my kid went from house to house, whoever the cat lived with, it was more their cat, right? Because they were with them the whole time. So the theory was that the kitten would go with the boy back and forth. So I brought Scully over there, and I'm just like, do you want this cat or what? Like, he's adorable. We got him. And they bonded right away. And so, yeah, so he was still at his dad's, so I left him there. And there's this whole side story where his dad was just not into it. He has a difficult time with change, and we've been talking about like this was something that we were going to do for like 6 months, and we were actively looking. And he had just like 2 weeks before, because it was the middle of summer, and I mean, rightly so, he said like, let's hold off on getting a kitten because it's summer and we're going to the lakes and stuff like that. And so that was the plan. But I mean, it was one of those things, what am I going to do no to this perfect cat that we've been looking for? So anyways, he got over it eventually. Like, it took a couple days, and I'm like, dude, like, get over it, right? And he did, and it was fine. But in within those first 4 days, I get this phone call. Oh, we dropped the cutting board on the kitten. And I was so pissed because the cutting board that they have is like a brick. It's like a block of wood, a nice sized, thick, rounded edge block of heavy wood. And this kitten was so tiny. And, that's not very much information. We dropped the cutting board on the kitten. Well, there's so many ways you can drop a cutting board on a kitten, okay? So I'm like, what the fuck? On the phone. And then, and then crying, and I hang up, and I'm like, drive over there, bust the door open, like, what's going on in here? And they're both just bawling their eyes out. And so right away I'm like, oh. And then I look, and the kitten is just sitting underneath the table, and he's not squashed. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then under investigation, I see that his left foot, or is it his right foot, um, the ankle was broken. It was completely detached. It was just the skin holding his foot to his leg. So, and it was a Sunday. So we, called the vet and had to get one in special. And, first of all, they lead with, first we'd have to pump him full of drugs and then put a cast on him. And he'd have to come in every week or 2 weeks to get the cast removed and reset because he's growing. And we got to keep him drugged up so that he doesn't, snap the thing, because they're putting little pins in there to hold it, and then they'd have to set the pin. And I'm just like, what? And ding ding ding, ching 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 ching, like the amount of money. And I'm like, let's just put him down. Like, that's no life for a kitten. And my son was like, no, because he'd already bonded with this cat. And then so his dad was like, that's not an option. I'm like, all right, like, and then the vet's like, or we could just cut his leg off. And like, lead with that next time. Like, yes, let's cut his leg off. And then he's like, then he's just healing from that and he'll be good to go. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? Anyways, so yeah, we amputated his leg, and within like an hour after his surgery, he was running around the vet, charming everybody that worked there, because when we picked him up, they were all like gushing over him because he was so cute when he was little. And then took him back to his dad's, where the other cat was there, and I actually have some pictures of the two of them playing around the yard. The day of his surgery. So cute. Anyways, 8.5 years later, Scully now lives at my place because the back and forth, and then there was a fight. And he was getting anxiety, and he had crystals in his pee, and so he stayed a little bit longer at my place. And then my son realized that the cat, like his dad's cat, would just kind of, when he was there with the cat, he would kind of not be around. And so he was missing out on his relationship with his dad's cat. And that week that I had him with me while he was over there, Griffin was more interactive with him. And so he's just like, why don't we just keep Scully at your place? And then, so, and it was kind of overall for better. Like, Scully, he was okay with the travel back and forth, but you could tell, like, it was stressful. There was a little bit of stress there, anxiety or whatever. So he stuck around here, and then I had built like this whole bird sanctuary in my backyard, and I was getting kind of into like spirituality more, and divine timing of the light and the birds and all this stuff, and playing with branches and weaving and all kinds of things, and like making a bird sanctuary. And I had all the birds, and I had a bird book. All of a sudden I'm like this crazy bird lady. And you know before it was like, oh, it's a bird, but now I'm like, oh, let me look at my bird book and see what kind of bird that is and what its habitat, like, who's that anyway. So and then I'm sitting here, so I have my outdoor window, which is behind the camera here, and there's an awning, and I put a little shelf and a bird feeder right on the other side of the window, so the birds come and I can like get a nice view of them, like right there, right? And so I got this family of chickadees, and it's like the second year, so they're bringing their babies back. It's like this whole thing, and I've got this chickadee looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm just like, oh, you're so beautiful. And then all of a sudden, this freaking gray flash of death grabs this freaking chickadee that I have locked eyes with, and I'm like, no! So I run outside. I'm like, hey, and the cat, of course, is like, what? And it's got this bird, and the bird's like, chirp, 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 like, I want to live. And so I go over there and I grab the cat, pull the bird out. The bird flies away into the tree. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, it felt so traumatizing. I felt like the velociraptors on the Jurassic Park, where The one is like got you in the eye stare, and then the other one comes and attacks you on the side. So it was like accessory to murder over here. And sure enough, this freaking cat comes out of nowhere, this little gray fur ball, just tiny, and she's just flinging herself all over the place, catching birds left, right, and center. And so I'm like, okay, what? And she looks starving and like survival cat mode, stray cat. So I start changing up the bird situation to kind of deter this cat. So there's a little trial and error because I'm not used to this flinging herself at the bird situation. And so I start feeding her to try and deter her because I'm like, here, eat food. You don't have to catch the birds, but she still did. And then I started, her and I, um, we started falling in love. That's what happened. She came over and she sat on the grass in front of me, and she flipped onto her back, flipped her head upside down, and was staring at me upside down. And if that's not the cutest thing, I don't know what is. I'm just like, what is going on with you? And then she comes and she sits right on my lap, curls up with this little tiny thing. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then she did something or said something. She didn't say something, but she did. Anyways, there was something about it suddenly that was like, it felt like miso. It felt like miso's spirit. And I asked her, I'm like, miso, like, what is this? And I had this whole like teary moment, and it felt like it. And it also, like, the idea of a familiar, they're familiar because you recognize them, you recognize their spirit from having them in another vessel, right? And it kind of made sense to me in that moment too. Like, if he's coming back, that spirit of miso is coming back in. um it would be like the opposite, like in the Avatar, the Last Airbender, right? Like, every time the Avatar gets reborn, it switches its gender every time, and it cycles through the different elements, right? And so Miso was a big pod, nice big male cat, and she's this tiny little paw, little tiny female cat. So the other thing that was kind of cool was the day she started, kind of, or the week that she was in and around, and we were like having these moments and stuff like that, was the July 2023 new moon. That it was something, mystical or magical about this new moon. And so I was calling her New Moon Kitty because she was gray. She's gray. And the moon, is a new moon. It's like a gray moon. So, anyways, I was calling her New Moon Kitty, and she wasn't mine. I'd see her for a couple days. She'd be gone for a couple days, and so it felt like it was more like we recognized each other, the spirits, right? She was like, "Hey, I'm here again in this world." Like, she was just kind of, or he was coming to, let me know, but he had to be somewhere else right now. He came to this earth to kind of be there for somebody else. And nope, nope, he's or she wanted to be mine. So yeah, by October, um, she I guess she's living with us. And the other thing is she got along with Scully really well. She's a hissy cat at every other cat, but Scully, I don't know. She rubs up against him, swarms around him. Isn't doesn't hiss at him unless he's being a brat or something like that. But every other cat, like Scully, is such a lover, and because he's big and three-legged, he moves different. And so anytime he tries to approach a cat, they're always like hissing at him and swatting at him and stuff. And you can tell, like, he just wants a friend, right? So I kind of manifested her, I guess, in a way. Like, I just wanted him to really find like a buddy, somebody like a cat friend. And so so yeah, she came into our lives at the perfect timing. And and now it's a year later, and she still hunts my birds. Um, oh, that whole period when she was first becoming mine. So she showed up in July. August was more like we were seeing her a little bit more by August, and then by September she was practically living with us. But she would leave um, the head of a bird, the heart of a bird, and feet at the doorstep. And I'm like, what kind of Baba Yaga situation is this? Like, what is this? And so I started saving them. What do you do? What do you do? They're gifts, right? And then I'm like, I'm gonna have all these bird skulls. And then I'm thinking of, like, I don't know, the huntsman, Snow White and the Huntsman, and she's got those necklaces and those cool dresses with all the bird skulls. I'm like, oh yeah, like maybe that's what, I don't know. I don't think I actually thought further than I'll have all these bird skulls because I finally successfully got myself a decent bird skull. And I'm like, now what do I do? It's actually got a spine attached to it. I still have it. I stashed it somewhere. So, anyways, I had carcasses like crazy, and I didn't even save all of them. There were so many. Oh my goodness, she was like just a crazy birder. And yeah, so I tried burying them, um, drying them out. Like I tried a couple different methods, and the one that was the most successful that I got one out was one I didn't see right away. That was kind of tucked under a thing outside, and oh, that bird's got a big nasty thing on his foot, dude. What's your deal? He's holding it like this, but it's like a big weird ball of flesh. Looks like a fox sparrow. Anyways, bird. Um, yeah. So she hasn't been too crazy with the bird eating lately. I did see her. She almost got one on the fence there. Had a mouthful of feathers. Oh my god, buddy. He's just sitting there looking at me like, "Are you gonna help me with my foot? I could. Do you want me to? What would I do?" Oh, buddy. Oh, it's his toe. Ooh, he's got a very big toe. It's almost like elephantitis on his one foot, and this toe is like massive. Oh, buddy. Nature, man. I don't know. So yeah, so that's the story of my cat that I think is kind of my familiar. And I've learned a lot from her. She just the trust. So then she's outside, and I see somebody outside my fence, kind of pacing around. Through the little slats, I just see this thing, and so I come out and I'm like, "Hello," and I peek over the fence, and there's this little girl there, and she's like, "That cat right there." I'm like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "That's our cat," and I'm like, "I don't think so." And she's like, "Well, she went missing." Um, and I was like, "Well, how long has she been gone for?" She was gone for 3 months or whatever. And so this was, um, what was this? I think this was the spring after she had. So no, it wasn't 3 months. She said she had been missing for a really, really long time, and noticed that she was around here, um, and just kept trying to see her. Anyways, it turned out that this little girl, this was her cat. And I'm like, well, I'm not keeping her against her will. Like she showed up in my yard. She was eating my birds. I started feeding her. I let her come and go as she pleases, and she just chooses to be here. And I'm like, does she ever come visit you? Does she ever come? And she's like, no. And I'm like, like, and then it turns out she's actually her uncle's cat, and that they were trying to keep her inside. And right there, I'm like, she's such an outside cat. Like, she absolutely loves it. So she probably was like, I'm freaking out of here if you're going to try and keep me out. First chance she got, she snuck out and never went back or something. I don't know. It looked like she was gone for about 3 months. But anyways, turned out they had two cats, and both of the cats had gone missing. So again, flags. And so I just told her, I'm like, well, at least you know that one of your cats is living its best life. Like, I'm like, have you heard anything about the other one? She's like, no. And I'm like, see, sometimes pets disappear and we never know whatever happened to them. And I'm like, well, at least you know that this one, made it. And she was kind of like, okay, kind of thing, and left. And I didn't think we had a problem, but I caught her kicking my door a couple times. Um, but yeah, I caught her, and she doesn't do it anymore because she thought she was being sneaky. But yeah, if I'm ready to have the conversation of like pulling up to her parents or whatever with her and just being like, do we have a problem here? But typically I just try and keep my distance from the people who live around me because of that exact reason. It's just knocking on my door or hanging outside in my backyard. I don't want that. So anyways, I didn't steal somebody else's cat twice. Okay. These cats chose, and that's the other thing that I thought, they both chose to be with me, like Miso and Mims is what I named her. After Madam Mim, because she would be sitting on you and she'd be all like, I love you, I love you. And then all of a sudden she'd be like, no. And I jump up and run away. And you're like, what did I do? And so I don't know if you know Madam Mim. She's from the Sword in the Stone movie, the animation. And she's the crazy witch that lives in the forest. And she battles Merlin and cheats. But that whole sense, like, so she's Mimsy, which I guess I had forgotten that Mimsy was a movie about this extra or multi-dimensional rabbit sent to find love, and it finds these two kids that love it, and so it has to go away because it has to save its planet or whatever by bringing love back to it or something like that. Anyways, and it's really sad but great, and I try to stay away from those kinds of movies because I'm just I get so much emotional. I get so emotional on those ones. So she's Mimsy when she's sweet and cute, and then she's Mims when she's like crazy. But that whole like consent and trust building, you know, like never forcing them, never pushing them. Like I started putting my arms around her and she'd be like, ugh, and then letting her know that she can leave at any point, you know, like there's different ways that you can slowly, and you could tell like now I got her to a point where I do that and she's kind of like leans in and gets like little snuggle, and then I kind of just open it up a bit to let her know that she can pop out at any point, and but she likes that little cozy. So yeah, she's not quite at this the status that Miso. Oh, that was the other thing. Like I think she is now her own entity, right? Like even if she is Miso's spirit, her personality and who she is in this life is different. You know, different life circumstances, different, you know, survival things. Like Miso, he was the most gentle cat. Um, he actually slapped a little girl across the face. It was awesome. It was like pads, no claws or anything. With you heard a, and the little girl was like, and I'm like, because I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, did Miso just slap you across the face? And she's like, because there was two of them, and they were like kind of coming at him a little bit too hard and strong, and he just like reared up and just went, psh. Awesome. Like this is what I mean. This cat was the best. So yeah, so Mims and Scully would be like such an awesome book to create, because Scully is this big like sun god, orange, you know, lion type, bountiful sun god vibes, and then Mims is this tiny gray moon, and she has white, but it's like so white it's like silver. So so yeah, I love that. And then I also had one of my prophetic dreams that I had. Oh, there she is. One of my prophetic dreams I climbed up the side of this hill that was all blue crystals, which I later discovered were blue sapphires. And when I looked over the top, there was a trail, and there was these two cats walking side by side. You know how cats, when they walk in side by side, and they're kind of leaning on each other. And one was fully Scully, like for sure, like just full of life, you know, like, and he represented life. And then the other one was smaller, skinnier, and the leg, I could see bone, like almost like a zombie cat was what I thought, um, through the one leg. And so I kind of, when I first had the dream, I was thinking like life and death. Like these two cats were representing life and death, kind of walking down this path. But then once I met Mims, and they both had come in from outside, and Mims sidled up beside Scully and walked beside him in that way. And where I was standing, it was the freaking image from my dream. And I'm like, oh, it's them. And I'm thinking now that the not now, but at that point, that maybe that the zombie element, the death cat element, was the representation of the spirit of my dead cat in this new cat. So, anyways, I thought that was kind of cool. So there you have it. Oh, the wind's starting to get crazy. Um, so yeah, there's kitty stories for you. They have their own Instagram page, and you can see all their beautiful faces and pictures and stuff on there. It's at my fluffy moochers. I think that's what they're called. It used to be my fluffy mooch ginger, when it was just Scully. But then once Mims became part of the family, I changed it to my my fluffy moochers. I'm pretty sure. I'll post it somewhere. I'll add it to the description if you really want to know. But yeah, if you scroll back, you can. Well, you'd have to scroll back a year, I guess, but you kind of see her story, her coming in when we were falling in love, and the bird carcasses she was leaving, and everything. And then there's other friends too, because we get quite a few cats coming through in our yard, and there's Jared and Darkness and Simon. Those are pretty much the regulars that come through. Those are just names that we gave them over the years. And yeah, Darkness is the cat who showed up. Actually, he came in on a full moon on Halloween night. And I called him Darkness because he came in out of the dark. I just opened up the sliding glass door, and all of a sudden this freaking blackness just ran in. And I'm like, what the? And he ran into my kitchen and did this like frolicky hop play thing, and then spun around and came back. And I'm like, it's a full moon on Halloween, and a black cat wants to frolic in my kitchen. I'm not messing with that. Like, do what you gotta do. Like, maybe there's some spirits that he's like chasing out. I don't know, right? And then he played with Scully. Wasn't interested in the food. Just played with Scully a bit, and then wanted outside. Left again. And I'm like, all right. And then he's been a regular. He comes around all the time. And then eventually he got to a place where he just wanted food, and so he started coming in, eating food. And now I've got him trained that he doesn't come right in. If I do leave the door open, though, he'll come in, but not all the way in. Like, he's being really respectful. So anyways, he's on there too. And I'm trying not to make him my cat, because I don't need 3 cats. But, you know, if I've got the sun and I've got the moon, it makes sense the darkness is somewhere around. And so that's the thing. Like, him and Scully are buddies. You see them sitting outside all together all the time. And like I said, when he was first coming in, he was playing with Scully. And I'm like, I want that for Scully. And it was kind of before Mims, too. But Mims isn't, she always hisses at him. She's like, get the heck away. Rightly so. Rightly so. Okay, so there's my cat story. I told you, if you made it this far, I warned you that I was going to just go off about cats. So there you have it. And yeah, please check out their Instagram page if you want to see them, because they're cute. And also, I will see if I can add some photos to this video, because I'm totally experimenting in this realm right now, and so that seems like a good excuse to experiment with. Okay, have a great day, and don't blow away in this if you're in the cyclone area.